tossers have thrown it out the door with their behaviour this week. They should be ashamed of themselves. They should absolutely look at themselves in the mirror and wonder what the have they been doing. They were fucking hissing at us and calling us cheats in the Lord's long room, and they have the gall to say, talk to us about the spirit of cricket. Absolute bullshit.
There's a big appeal that's hit him on the pad. He's out. Lions gone. New South Wales are 9 down. Onto Sydney Road, and it's hit a car. Oh, I think it's hit a car. What a way to bring up your 50.
All you want is to leave it all behind. Now there is a simple remedy to stay fit for all eternity.
Not an ideal way to start the summer. I think you always, zoom out. You got 5 test matches. And of course, you got Sri Lanka as well afterwards. But, it's a big series. But we thought our prep was really good leading to this test match. Everyone's was a little bit different. I think I was the only one in the team that didn't play any red ball cricket, but had some ODI cricket and, quite similar leading to previous years. And, I don't think, prep was the issue. We were outplayed this week, but, I thought the prep was...
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Cricket Unfiltered podcast. I am Manners. It is the day after Australia's chastening defeat in the first test against India. I'm here to try and make sense of it all. It was a very, very emotional few days. And, sometimes I get accused of overreacting, but I actually don't think I overreacted. I mean, this was a gargantuan crisis of epic proportions. This is the first test of the summer. Australian cricket fans expect our team not to win, but at least fight and look prepared, look ready for the summer. And we didn't get any of that. And all across the country today, there's been outraged cricket fans who try and digest what is happening. And so when I get really upset about what happened in the test match, it's not just this test match in isolation, but, I've spoken about this into the lead up to the summer and over the last few years that I feel like there has been danger signs for this team. And, this free and easy approach that Andrew McDonald has brought doesn't actually endure the stress test very often. That as soon as things start to go badly, you're in a very difficult spot when the way you run the team is just let everyone do what they want. And you hear Pat Cummins there, talking about, when you zoom out, we look at a 5-test series and 2 tests of Sri Lanka. No, I want you to zoom in. Just worry about winning in Adelaide. And you should have just been worried about winning at Optus Stadium. Like this obsession with staying fit is costing us so much good cricket. I mean, we have a great team. They are great players, but they are not being used right. They're the wrong captain, probably the wrong coach. And I know there's not going to be mass changes after the test. So the news has come to hand that there will be no changes to the Australian squad. So they're sticking firm. But at both Andrew McDonald and Pat Cummins' press conference, they did indicate that it's the same squad, meaning Josh Inglis could come into the side as a form batter. But what's in front of them now is Adelaide is essentially must win. If they want to have any choice, any chance at bringing home the Border Gavaskar trophy, then they have to level the series 1-1. If they go to Adelaide and lose, it's all over. There's no way Australia's going to win 3 in a row against this Indian side at home. So the summer crystallising for Australia far too quickly. They're planning for, the 4th test being fit. Well, could be too late by then. So, you really need to focus on what's happening right now. And I do think that Cummins, how do I say this delicately? Because I do like a lot of the cricketers in the Australian team, but we've let the inmates run the asylum for far too long. It smacks of arrogance. It smacks of taking for granted their spot in the Australian team. That the Australian team, it should be friggin' hard. Like, it should be hard work. And, I'm not going to go down. Well, we'll get to I've got a lot of audio to play today, but, just this team doesn't have a lot of love. And I've got tons of messages today from irate fans. Some of my mates absolutely hate Pat Cummins. Now, Pat Cummins is a great bloke. He doesn't deserve that hate, but I would say get a new manager because you need to work on your optics. And, I just wind back to that match at the Adelaide Oval when Australia lost to Pakistan in the one days, and everyone flitted off home to rest rather than actually try and win a series for Australia. I want my Australian captain to tell the people that tell him to rest to fuck off. I'm going to Perth and I'm going to win a series. Imagine the team had gone to Perth and won that deciding match, got some practice in those conditions, got match hardened, what it was like to win a series. But no, in the end, they had to go off. Pat had to go to Coldplay. Mitch Starc probably had to play a few rounds of golf. I get it. These are very busy cricketers, but this is not an overreaction because you've got a lot at play here. And we're going to play some clips in a minute, but we are sitting at the end of an era. This team is going to fall apart sooner rather than later. There are going to be mass changes. And as I've said many times, you can't plan for when that is going to happen. You can hope, like a lot of these players hope they get to the end of this summer, and some of them probably hope they get to the end of next summer against England in the Ashes. And wouldn't that be a fairy tale? That's probably what they're thinking. What a fairy tale it'd be, winning the Border Gavaskar Trophy back at home, and then next year defending the Ashes, and then we go off into retirement. But what this first test has put in the spotlight is that might not happen. There might be no fairy tale finishes. In fact, the opposite. Some of these players could go off as losers. They could lose again to India, this time again at home for the third time in a row, and they'll be forced into retirement. And, I don't think I ever reacted. Sure, I know they're not going to sack Pat Cummins and Andrew McDonald after one loss, but they are in the gun. In this second test match at Adelaide, if they perform badly, if this team performs badly, then there could be mass changes. And they've just extended McDonald's contract to 2027. Is he the right coach for a change of era? So he might have been the right coach for when the players knifed Langer in the back and brought him in because they're a very experienced bunch. But maybe now we're in an element where this group actually will need a different type of coach. I'd like a coach that actually instills some pride in the baggy green again, some pride in the culture, that this team gets back to what they, were doing a few years ago, make this country proud of them. And they've just gone away from that again. They feel like these sort of superstars that are on millions and millions of dollars, and they're too good for Shield cricket. They're too good for training. And we heard in the aftermath, not a lot of accountability from McDonald and Cummins. They were very measured in their response. But I said it last night in the day 4 wrap. I don't mind being very steady to the media because it's going to do a lot of good laying into your players for the press. But I hope they're laying them into them in the dressing room. I hope they're giving it to them squarely between the eyes, because that was a absolutely atrocious performance. All right, now let's hear some more audio. We've got a lot of big discussions, but let's hear Pat Cummins talking about the fielding of the Australian team.
Yeah, look, we weren't at our best there either this week. A couple of tight catches that in other games we probably grab, just a few kind of overthrows and misfields. So yeah, of course, again we get to Adelaide and do a bit of that, but again I thought the prep leading in was really good. Everyone catches a million balls, so yeah, it's about transferring that into the game.
Yeah, someone asked me today, where I rank Pat Cummins on sort of all the Australian captains I've seen. And he's probably the worst Australian captain I've ever seen for Australia. And, that sort of response there is exactly what annoys me. Just very casual, very dismissive, very matter of fact. The fact is that fielding was disgraceful. And this is not the first time. So if you remember the T20 World Cup, Earlier this year, the fielding was atrocious, cost them potentially the title. You wind back, the fielding has been patchy since Langer left, and it's no surprise that once training becomes optional, how many 35-year-olds are going to go and spend all that time training? And I would also question the intensity of the training. So, the great Australian teams talk about the intensity of training. Like, it's fine to just go there and take catches. That's all good. I do it commentating Shield matches, and you see them taking a few catches before the day to warm up. But it's when you get that real intense fielding training, and you know what that intensity does? Kind of mirrors match situations a bit more. That means when you get into a game, you're ready to go. You're going to hit the stump sometimes. You're going to take the catches. You're going to get life in your stance. So this is grounds for firing the coach. If this fielding doesn't improve, you could just say you have a contract out the door. As I said, happened at the T20 World Cup, happening here. We saw in the Ashes last year, McDonald and Cummins lose the plot. They're good when it's going right, but it's just as soon as there's a little glitch, like my internet, they really seem to struggle. All right, let's have a listen to Pat Cummins talking about Marnus Labuschagne.
Marn, along with quite a few guys in the team, didn't have the week that we would have wanted. It's no secret how hard the batters, particularly Marn, works in the nets, and he's always trying to find those small marginal gains. So this week be a lot of conversation with the coaches around maybe his approach and what he could be doing differently. We know he's a class player. Him at his best is one of the scariest propositions for opposition bowlers to bowl at. So.
There we go. Well, Marnus has been a long way for his best for a long, long time. As I said, I don't think he can publicly say, I think we need to drop Marnus or anything. So, but, Marnus is in the gun. He scored 1 century in over 40 innings for Australia. He's made 1 score in the last 5 or 6 tests above 50. His performances have been on a steady decline for a long time. And I think that's what else is annoying me about this match, is that the danger signs were there, and they were never spoken about. But they were there. I mean, Khawaja's form has been slipping. Smith and Labuschagne's form is slipping. Mitch Marsh averages 30 and he's in our top 6. Travis Head, well, he got some form together. So, there's been danger signs there. So they're not going to make any changes. And this is crazy to me. I mean, Australia have just been spanked. This is not the time to sit on your hands. I think they should have been more inventive. So they're just taking exactly the same squad to Adelaide. They're going to go home. They're probably all home now resting. And then they will go to Adelaide on Monday and start to prepare for the test. And as I said, I think you can see Josh Inglis maybe coming into the team. But then that's going to stuff up the batting order, because you're probably going to have to move Smith to 3, Inglis to 4, Head stays at 5. Maybe that's the way you do it. And I like Josh Inglis. He's a very good player. But I do think after this chastening defeat, there was grounds for really mixing things up. So Cameron Bancroft, and people will know I'm not the greatest fan of Cameron Bancroft as a player, but he has been the Form Shield player for 2 years. Today he brought up his first century of the season. He's had a bad trot, but he is a gritty, gutsy opener. Could you put him up the top with Khawaja and move McSweeney to 3 and give Marnus a bit of a spell? Instead, though, they're probably going to tweak the batting order if they want to bring Inglis in, and there's a few other moving parts. We'll get to the other one in a minute. Then maybe, you could, as I said, bring Inglis in and push them all up. But I thought that the nature of the defeat and the fact that this series is so important, I'm surprised they haven't considered rejigging the batting order. Marcus Harris made another half century today. Now, I know these aren't ideal solutions, but we need to just focus on winning the series, and getting a top order player in there to partner Khawaja, and then you sort of take Labuschagne out might be the way to go. Also, I tweeted out on the weekend that I think they should play Constance because this series is gone. If I'm being honest, I do think the series is gone. I don't think this Australian team can stop the rot now. It's actually about individual players playing for their career. So can Steve Smith play on beyond this season? Can Kawaja play on beyond this season? I think Marnus will come back. So if he gets dropped, I don't see it as being permanent. Is Mitch Marsh a top 6 player? These sort of questions need to be answered. And if Australia loses at Adelaide, then I actually think get some youngsters in there because we need to start blooding them before the Ashes. We can't have a Constance playing his first test when England arrive here next summer. So, if what I think is going to happen, and I'm going to be at the Adelaide Oval, the test, I can't wait. I think this Indian team is going to be hard to stop now. And this is going to be the end of the Australian era. So this will be the end of this team. India are going to finish this team off. I hope I'm wrong. I love Australian cricket. I hope I'm wrong. Everything I've seen, though, tells me otherwise, that all the signs were there. None of these players are on the improve. They're all on the decline. So, apart from maybe McSweeney, who's obviously going to get better, maybe Carey's getting better. Apart from that, though, they're all on the way down, and that is not a good spot to be in. So it's a real trouble for this Australian team. It's a real divide, and I've got to say I sort of predicted it. I thought this could happen, that this team was just sitting on the edge, and I think they've made their own bed. They've been too casual. They've been just sauntering along, basically using things like the World Test Championship and being number 1 in the world and stuff. Like Pat Cummins said at the end of the game, we're still number 1 in the world. Well, you didn't fucking play like one in that match. In fact, you played like one of the worst teams in the world. So don't wheel this out that you're number 1. Did you play like the number 1 team in the world in the second half of the Ashes last year? Probably not. Did you play like the number 1 team when you lost to the West Indies at the Gabba? Probably not. So why don't you shut up about that? Why don't you shut up about all that stuff and remember what it means to be given the honour of representing Australia and wearing the baggy green cap? Now, people think I'm, particularly harsh on the culture within the Australian team because I don't think Langer should have got fired. And maybe that's true. But I was listening to another podcast today, The Sounding Board, which is by SEN, who covers a lot of the cricket here. And here's Craig Hutchison, one of the hosts. He's also the owner of SEN, mad cricket fan. I actually was surprised how into cricket he is, but he has a team in Melbourne. And let's have a listen to Hutchie on the culture within this Australian team.
A little bit of this speaks to the changing coaching manner of the team, right? Previously, when the hard-headed and often unpopular Justin Langer had the keys, this is how we're going to do things. Then the players, largely the bowlers.
Yeah, the bowling fraternity.
Yeah. The bowlers and the batters are like 2 different teams.
Cummins, Stark, Hazelwood.
Yeah, it's well known that they're very different in their approach to each other in the team. So they got their way with a more easygoing coaching team. And that's just gone too far, hasn't it? Don't you think? Like, it looks like they're...
It's the Geelong model of trust in athlete to do the right thing.
Turn up when you want. Prepare yourself as you see fit. It is a Geelong model.
Exactly what I thought, the Geelong model. For those of you who know, I love my AFL, so that's exactly the comparison I was thinking. Anyway, so there's Hutchie and Damo talking about the culture within the Australian team. And it is a far-reaching impression that this Australian team rules, they run their own show and it's a problem. And, it has gone too far. We've had just this inert beginning to the season where your captain doesn't play a Shield match, which I think is enough to sack him as well. They're not going to, but it's enough to sack him. And, there was some whispers from certain media people that there was a lot of ex-players who were not happy with the Australian performance and blowing up a bit in the media centre at the Perth Test. Now, I wasn't there, but I do know it's far more common for an ex-player to say one thing behind the scenes and another thing on air. As you all know, I'll just say what I think on air or off air. And, if cricketers don't like me because they don't like my opinions, well, bad luck. I mean, I'm not here to make friends. But yeah, there is a bit of a pushback against this team, and there will be a reckoning. And all they can do is go to Adelaide and prove us all wrong, win the match, embarrass India, get back in the series, show us that you really care, really dig in there, give us a performance to be proud of. But I'm not sure it's going to happen. Anyway, so Gerard Whateley, who is, one of the, I guess, most senior cricket media voices now in Australia, commentates for SEN. He's quite measured as well. But let's have a listen to what he had to say on the radio today.
Interesting to see how Australia reacts. We will all overreact, and that's our right to, and I think it's our right to critique and to see where changes should be made. But there's always a proportional response. So you can cross your fingers, close your eyes, and hope everything's going to be right for the next game, or you can measure a proportional response. So my position is, if any sporting team performs that poorly, there's an obligation to make a level of change.
So great stuff from Gerard there, and as you can see, he's as fired up as I am. Says it without the swear words, but I would, and I can if needed, but I would say, well, the selectors haven't made any changes. They've held firm. I'm more on Gerard's side. As I said, I think they need to make some changes. I know they're not going to sack Cummins as much as I'd like them to. I know they're not going to sack McDonald as much as I'd like them to, but they are resisting this force and they're going to stick with what they know. But let's hope it's not too late, because if we go to Adelaide and we stuff it up, Border Gaveston Trophy's gone again, and it could be a messy season. Think back to 2010-11 against England. Think back to 2017 against South Africa. But what I didn't like with Cummins and McDonald afterwards was there was no real accountability. Like they credited India, but they never really said anything like, we need to look at our preparation. Maybe we need to rethink a few things. They're just always on this same steady. You can't knock them off. They just keep steady the whole time, which is a strength and also a weakness. I mean, we saw in the Ashes last year that steadiness did not withstand the pressure of that Ashes series, and I think this is going to be the same. You can preach this steadiness, but you actually need to be fucking tough. You need to be hard. And I'm not saying these guys are soft, but this team needs a culture reset, and I'm not sure McDonald is the one to do it. Now let's have another listen to Gerard, and this is where, okay, so this I'm going to set up. As I said, I think Cummins is one of the worst captains I've ever seen as an Australian fan. I can't think of a worse one. At times, Ponting was pretty bad, but he had a tough team to handle after McGrath and Warren. But Cummins is, by most measures, not good tactically. His bowling has suffered since being the captain. Yeah, as I said, he's maybe our worst captain in the last 20, 30 years. And let's have a listen to what Gerard had to say about some of the tactics on the third day when Kohli was approaching his century and Marnus decided to bowl bumpers.
But Marnus Labuschagne's not to be doing that. I found that it was just so silly in prospect, and that Australia went to it so early in the series, I thought was embarrassing, and part of what they need to rethink. And then just as matters totally got away from them at the end of day 3, Reddy took to Marsh and made him look like a club cricketer.
So there you go. And again, this team, I don't know what they were thinking. And Gerard put it very succinctly. It was embarrassing. I mean, just to see the team fall apart like that in the first test when you bowled out the team for 150. Another concern for Australia is the fitness of Mitch Marsh. And this is something McDonald and Cummins both spoke about. Mitch Marsh did not pull up well from bowling in this test match. And seemed like he pulled up actually pretty badly. So I don't know what that means for the next test match, whether he can play just as a batter, whether it's so bad he's going to have to miss the match and Inglis comes in which case Marnus gets a reprieve. But I mean, Marsh's the all-round is not working. It's probably not going to work this summer. We've seen now that if Australia needs someone to bowl overs at the back half of this series, it won't be Marsh. They'll either need to bring in a Bo Webster or an Aaron Hardy or some other all-rounder. And I don't know. I know Marsh made 47 in the second innings, but I'm not sure you should pick someone with a test average of 30. I guess he's the only one that's, him and Head were the 1 and 2 top scorers in the second innings. But Marsh is a question. Marsh is a huge question mark. So going into Adelaide, it's probably not conditions where you desperately need a medium pace all-rounder, but they're not going to make any changes. So, they could go in and try and get through some overs with Head and Marnus if he plays. I don't know, but it's very clear Mitch Marsh is not a proper all-rounder, and his body will just not hold up to a long series bowling day in and day out. And we're going to have to. This Indian team is full of stars. We've played them into form. So there are going to be tons of long days in the field from now. In fact, the rest of this season could just be one long day in the field for Australia. That's what it feels like to me. So no changes for Australia. They're holding firm. The country is hitting the panic button. And I think what we're going to see at Adelaide is the culmination of all this. Because if Australia doesn't fire back, then this team will be torn apart. So the bloodletting will begin. And Gerard Whateley wanted it now. He said that performance was so bad, don't wait till Adelaide. And I do agree with him. I'm surprised the selectors haven't come out and said, okay, whoever they thought is the next top order player, whether they think Bancroft, Harris, Constance, whoever they've got ranked, we're adding him to the squad next week, just to put the other guys on notice. And also I think there is this sort of an effect that happens when it feels like test players are protected species. It really pisses off the players under them trying to get in the side because, Harris could make a comment. Well, why didn't I get the same chance as Marnus has got? And Marnus has 11 test centuries, but it feels like double standards at the moment that the Australian team is carrying so many players. And, all it needs is, if Bancroft can come out and hit another 100 next week, it'll be a pretty irresistible case for the rest of the series. All right, we are coming to the end of this live stream. If you've got any questions, put them in the live stream now. And I did see a question about from BDK. What about George Bailey, the chief selector? 100%. I think George Bailey and the selection panel are in the spotlight as well. They have consistently resisted making changes when players have been out of form. They carried players. A lot of people have talked about the fact that they carried Warner for so long, and then last year they allowed Smith to open rather than trying to find a new opener last year. The only thing I would say to that is what they were able to do when Smith opened was they were able to get Cameron Green back in the side, and he did score a big 100, and he now looks like a player we are really missing in the series. I mean, we knew we were going to miss him, but now it's really more evident. Like we're missing his overs. He's a classy batter, and so I get why Smith moving up is seen as a loss, but it did allow Cameron Green to, I guess, hit the next stage of his test career, and maybe it'd be different now if he was available for this series. All right, well, I guess that's it for this episode of Cricket Unfiltered. I just wanted to jump on, the day after and reflect on what was a really tough match for Australian fans. But I want to reiterate, I think there was a real, I'm just not sure why so many pundits underestimated this Indian team. I mean, they are such a good team, full of stars. I mean, their second 11 could probably beat our first 11 at the moment. But so many pundits said this series will be 4-0 Australia, 4-1 Australia, all these type of things. Yeah, why did so many people get that wrong? I mean, this Indian team, they've got Bumrah, they've got Kohli, they've got Jaiswal. I mean, you can't write them off. And we've seen that. And they lift when they get to Australia. It is, you think about what it's like for an Indian team coming here. They get so much love. They get so much attention. The grounds are noisy with their fans, but it's not quite the intensity of when they're in India. So they can probably relax a bit and maybe they can get out and about a bit more and enjoy themselves. And I sort of said at one of the post-match wraps that this this Indian team probably values winning in Australia more than anywhere. And a lot of people replied, yes, they do. I mean, this is the mecca for them, coming to Australia and winning. And they are fired up. They've hit the ground running. And Australia took this season for granted. They took their spots in the team for granted. They took the preparation for granted. And I would like McDonald to look back at everything and think, no, we actually stuffed this up. Like, we actually shouldn't have been resting. Like, let's rest when we win the series. Or if players are tired, then we'll punt them for the last couple of tests. I mean, we have some great bowlers on the sideline. Boland, Jai Richardson's back, although he injured himself. Nisa, he'll be back in a couple of weeks. So there's so many options there. I just think be like match hardened and ready to go for the first day of cricket in the summer. And I've seen this play out before. It's hard to get back in a series when a team is up and about like India now. It will take all of Cummins' charm and good leadership and motivation to get this Australian team up off the canvas and competing again. All right, I've come to the end of Cricket Unfiltered. Got some great episodes coming up. I interviewed Jason Frazier, who actually made his test debut against India, so that'll be out in the next couple of days. A fascinating interview. Could have spoken to him for hours. Remember, rate and review the show wherever you're listening. So if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more podcast content, so head to the podcast feed. It's always been podcast first for me, so there's a lot of interviews there. And I would say subscribe to the podcast feed. Please rate and review the podcast. I'm going to be reviewing every day of the tests. I'll be also doing my regular weekly episodes. I'll be catching up with a couple of other colleagues probably later this week or on the weekend to wrap up all the other cricket news. There's some domestic cricket happening and the WBBL finals are about to start. I'm going to the Thunder game against the Hurricanes tomorrow night. And also I'll be at the Adelaide Test, so I'll be doing reports after every day's play, probably from outside the Adelaide Oval. I'm not sure if they'll be live. I don't know if it'll be able to go live, but I'll be doing the dailies even though I'm at the ground. So be sure to stay tuned. This is the only place you're going to get the unfiltered view on Australian cricket. A lot of other podcasts beat around the bush to, ex-cricketers who are too afraid to say anything. But come to Cricket Unfiltered for the real cricket news.